Mark Saunders is turning his attention to bail reform in the mayoral campaign today, saying he wants an end to reverse onus at bail hearings for violent and repeat offenders. And Mark Saunders joins us now live with more on his plan. Good to talk to you about this afternoon. Bail reform has been a real hot-button issue in this city for a while. Can you explain to me how the mayor of Toronto would be able to make some of these changes that you're pushing for?
Well, we can certainly have influence, and certainly as mayor, the leader of the largest city in the country, representative of 20% of the GDP. If our city is not safe, it's not healthy. If it's not healthy, it's not productive. But more importantly, we can reduce victimization substantially if we make sure our laws are proper and courts represent community safety.
When you talk about community safety, of course, you know, violent crime in the city has been an issue now, particularly this year, whether it's on the TTC or otherwise. There are issues around here. How does bail reform, and you're a former police chief, so you would know this, how can bail reform change the levels of crime in Toronto?
Substantially, because I know that there's a very small number of people committing most of the violent crimes in the city of Toronto. I started this discussion in 2018, Nick, and I was very loud and very vocal about it. When you're arresting people, especially for gun crimes, and they're back out while the ink is still dry over and over that revolving door, it really does upset the communities who are concerned about their safety. The courts need to have an understanding of the huge impact that they have when they don't listen to what's going on in the communities, especially when it comes to the most violent criminals in the community.
So why do you think it's taking so long at the federal level in particular for this to happen?
Yeah, I wish I could answer that. The one thing I'm satisfied, though, is the fact that it was just me alone at one point in time. Now we've got other mayors. Now we've got all premiers that are talking about this, and we need to do it. It is so critical, and I'm glad it's moving in the right direction, but we're not where we need to be, and we need to move towards it sooner than later.
Mr. Saunders, it seems that you are certainly in the radar of some of your other fellow mayoral candidates, and I'm sure you've seen what they're coming out and saying to you, so I want to give you a chance to address this today. A lot of what they're talking about refers to your time as chief of police in Toronto. For example, Anna Byla putting out some quick facts saying homicides in Toronto increased under your time 23%, shootings went up 48%, shootings and firearms. So you've seen the rest of it here. I'm intrigued by this. Yeah. How do you respond to what Anna Byla, for example, is saying about your record as chief?
Yeah, I'm pretty intrigued too, and it's pretty rich to say that considering the Toronto Police is an agency of the city. They continue to vote not to give the budget that I ever wanted. And the second piece to that, when we're talking about people that are talking about disarming the police and defunding the police, you're pulling the rug out from underneath law enforcement. Listen, our city has grown substantially, and we need to make sure that we have a right amount of resources that are in place to keep the city safe. And by looking at their records, you'll see loud and clear that they were just as supportive, if not more supportive, to not make things move in the right direction when it comes to safety in this city. And they'll continue to do that.
And Councillor Bradford here, Mr. Saunders, also talked about saying you failed as police chief, talking about the serial killer preying on the LGBTQ community. You know, they're definitely going after your record here. How do you respond to that?
Listen, when it comes to the LGBTQ community and to that particular case, my heart goes out to the victims of that case and also to their family, friends, and loved ones. Learned a lot on that, and I can tell you words matter. And on the go forward, I promise this, that we have all learned and become stronger. It's important to make sure that we're across the table having those discussions because community safety involves everybody, and I want to make sure as mayor, I do not leave anyone out, specifically the LGBTQ community.
I want to circle back to the bail reform as well because, of course, as the former police chief, this is something that impacts the rank and file members of the Toronto Police Force. You arrest someone and then you see them come out again here. I wonder what you heard in your time as chief and how that sort of colors your vision here in terms of this move to bail reform from the policing aspect.
Well, a couple of things. It's not what I heard, it's what I saw. I saw people committing serious gun violence, being released on bail, given house arrest, committing other violence with firearms, and given house arrest again. And when we look at the numbers that Chief Demke has put across the board, the pattern is exactly the same. Listen, there are violent criminals out there that really should not be out in the public, and we need to be honest about this and have these discussions in a serious tone, not talking about some of the other things that are taking place at City Hall. That's why I'm running for mayor. I want to make sure that this city is safe, and I know how to keep the city safe and to go forward.
Okay, that is candidate, mayoral candidate Mark Saunders joining us live here on CP24 Live at noon. Thanks again for the time. Appreciate it this afternoon.
Great.
All right.